Okay, so this video will be for ACC number 7, parts 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to go ahead and start on our homepage in Schoology. Again, I'm referencing period 2A. Looking at the homepage, I'm going to go down to the folder Beginning SOLIDWORKS, and I'll look for ACC number 7. Now we have two different files in here. We have ACC 7, which is the part file. This is what we'll actually be building off of. Then we're going to come back and finish with ACC 7 drawing and finish the drawing as the final piece. So I want you to go ahead and click on the ACC number 7 here. Now remember, this is a 3D part file or 3D PDF file. This will not work in Schoology. So what we have to do is actually go up to the right corner, do a quick download, and open with Adobe Acrobat Reader and say OK. Now what will happen is this will open up, close these other ones out. Sorry, wait. And as you can see, I had an error there, so I'm going to go ahead and reopen this. Bringing this back over, I see that the 3D content has been disabled, so I'm going to go to Options and say Trust this document one time open, or one time only. I'll widen this out to full screen, and then I'm going to click on my isometric view to see what part we're working on today. So you can see this is pretty much a straightforward part. It's symmetric, so what we're going to do is basically create an outside shape here. Now in this case, I'm not going to use an offset. Offset really won't work well with this. What I'm going to do instead is basically draw from a front view. I'm going to basically draw this outside shape. Bring the line down, over, create these arcs, bring it back up, over, and then use my dimensions to define everything. Then what we'll do is go ahead and extrude that back, then come back and add in these two slot cuts. So this can actually be done in 2 steps. But before I get this started on the front plane in SOLIDWORKS, I need to now go through and figure out what the units will be. The units in this case are going to be MMGS, which tells us this is a metric part. Decimal will be 2 places, and we're going to finish off by adding an alloy steel to this to give it its mass properties. Now, this is important here, this little note, all holes and slots are through all, unless otherwise specified. So that means every slot, both left and right, are going to be through all. Now we're going to start with part 1 with A equal to 170, B equals 48, C equals 18, and D equals 50. And then we'll come back and edit to part 2, and then we'll edit with part 3, and we'll put part 3 into our drawing file. So going into my SOLIDWORKS, I'm going to go ahead, close that out, and do a file new. I'm going to open up a metric part and say OK. I'm going to go ahead at this point, and I'm going to open, or as soon as this comes up, I'm going to highlight the front plane. Start a new sketch. And basically, I'm going to create a line tool of the shape you see in this front view. I'm going to have my origin sitting right here. So I'm going to draw a straight line over, down, over, and then I'm going to use my little trick to create this arc. I'm going to draw a line over, up, over, use my line trick again, come back over and close this. So going to SOLIDWORKS, I'm going to take my line tool, start out this way, down, over. I'm going to do the trick, which the trick is pull away, touch, and create an arc. Pull over, pull up, pull over, pull up. And this one's going to be a little bit, I don't want to get caught right here. I'm going to pull this back a little bit further, left click, and then here comes the trick again. Pull away, touch. This one's going the wrong direction, so touch again. And, oh, maybe not. Control Z that, go back to my line tool again, and create this large arc. Hit escape to turn the tool off and your F key. All right, so obviously this is not exactly what we're supposed to have here. I will tell you right now, I'm going to add a relationship right away between this upper arc, control key, and this lower arc. And I'm going to make these two concentric. They're going to share the same center. So come to your left and hit concentric. This is really important. I'm now going to pull this down so these pull together. Now again, if it looks odd, you can always drag and pull things as you need to. Now in this case, I got a little bit of a problem a little bit here. Pull this up. Now it looks like I've got these two lines here locked together somehow. Pull that down. And if I have to, I may have to do some deleting here, and I may have to move some things around to get this to work. Yeah, these are pretty much locked together. I'm not seeing anything relationship-wise. Hold on here. I'm going to highlight and see. That's lighted to there. This one to there. This one here. This has somehow locked itself in. So I'm going to highlight this and delete and pull this back up. There we go. Okay. Now, let's start adding in some dimensions, okay? The big thing is I need to make sure that this point here and this center of this arc are all horizontal to each other. Okay, and then this corner here, control key, and this corner here are horizontal to each other. Okay, now looking at my drawing, I need to start adding in some dimensions here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the 70 and the 96 in here. And I'm also going to put that diameter 6 over here, and then we'll add the rest in a moment. So 96 and 70. So from this point here, it's going to be 70. From here to here will be 96. And then this distance here to the right will be 6. So going back and looking at this, now I need to get the height from this line here to the top to be letter C, which will be, in this case, 18. So I'm going to go to SOLIDWORKS and go from top line to bottom line, pull out here and type in 18. Okay, now I'm going to hit escape for a second because I'm going to make this line here, control key, and this line here collinear. It means they're going to share the same line. So there's going to be a line coming across. And hit check. Okay, look at other dimensions here. I need to make a radius of this out here from the center, radius of D. So that D is going to be 50 for this one. So I'm going to take my smart dimension and dimension from the inside out and make that 50. Okay, so we're getting close to the shape. Now I need to look at the other dimensions. Okay, it looks like I need to go from this left-hand side, A divided by 2. So I'm going to go in here and do an A divided by 2. From this point here to here will be A divided by 2. Well, in this case, A is 170 divided by 2. So 170 divided by 2. Oh, maybe I get this right. 170 divided by 2. Now, we have a slight problem here. Okay. I'm missing a dimension in this, and I'm going to tell you that right now. There's a dimension that should be in here from this left side to the right side. This should be a distance of A, which is 170 millimeters. So I'm going to go back in here, and I'm going to add a dimension from this left-hand side to this right-hand side at a distance of 170. All right, now the last thing I need to do is make this short little side right here, control key, and this side right here equal to each other. Okay, at this point, this is fully defined. I can tell by the color of the lines being all black in this lower corner where the word fully defined comes in. I'm now going to go to my features toolbar, extrude boss base. Now I'm going to go back into my PDF file and take a look at which one of these I have to look at. Okay, so I'm going to look here, and it looks like the thickness of this is going to be B. So we're going to extrude this. Here's my sketch back here. Now I'm going to extrude it forward a distance of B, which is 48. So I'm going to put in here, instead of 10, 48, and enter, and hit my check mark. Now, I've got my depth. It's a three-dimensional figure, but it's in blue. That indicates to me that we are missing our material. So I'm going to go here where it says material, not specified in my design tree, right click and edit material. Now we're looking for an alloy steel. And if you look down the steel tab here, right towards the middle, there's one that says alloy steel. We don't want the one with the SS, we just want the simple alloy steel. We're going to apply and close. Now if you don't like the shadowing here and all this different stuff you see, that is simply by hitting this little TV icon in the corner and taking the real view graphics and left clicking. Now, going back to the PDF file, I've got the basic shape here. What I need to do next is round off these four corners. So looking at my views here, I see in this view here that all the corners are radius of 14. Now I'm not going to draw this in and cut it off. I'm going to use what's called a feature fillet. So I'm going to go back to my SOLIDWORKS, go to my features toolbar, and I'm going to click on the feature fillet tool. Now the only thing I need to do is go where it says 10 here and type in 14. Now watch carefully as I click on this. Make sure your full preview button is clicked so you can see this. I'm just going to hit this vertical line right there, turns orange, left click. Go over to this vertical line, left click. This vertical line, left click. And this vertical line, left click. Now it's showing you the silhouette of what the part will look like when it's done. Hit your green check mark and the fillets have been added. Now the next part is I need to cut these two slots. Those two slots are going to be on this surface here. And it doesn't matter which one of these two you pick, either here or here. They're on the same plane. So I can draw both slots at the same time. I'm going to go to my sketch tab and say sketch. Spacebar, normal to. Turn on your straight slot tool and on both sides, 3 clicks. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. Hit escape to turn the tool off. Back in my PDF file, I'm going to look at some of these dimensions. I'm going to start by placing these. So I'm going to take the center line here to this left edge and measure 20. So I'm going to go here with my smart dimension, center line to the left edge, and make that 20. Now, between the two center lines, it shows that this is A minus 40. A is 170, so we're going to put 170 minus 40 in there to define those two spots. So going back to SOLIDWORKS, I'll click on this line, drop this down and go 170 minus 40. Okay, that's 130. Going back in here, I'm going to put the 14 from left to right on both of these. So I'm going to go back in here and go from here to here. I'll make this 14. And I'll make this 14. Going back to here, I see the distance between centers is 20. So I'm going to go add that in. From here to here is 20. And then I got either here to here, I can do the same thing, or I can add a relationship between this point here, control key, and this point here, and make them horizontal. I can do the same thing with the upper lines here and make these two horizontal. Now, looking back at my PDF file, it looks like my distance from this center to bottom edge is B minus 20 divided by 2. So I'm going to type this in exactly the way I see it. B minus 20, so 48 minus 20 divided by 2. So I'm going to take my smart dimension and go from this point here to this line, pull to my right, and with my parentheses, I'm going to take 48 minus 20, close parentheses, divided by 2. And that gives me 14. Verify that's right. Now I got to go back and check my boss extrude here because it looks like my boss extrude may be incorrect. So let me go ahead. I'm going to go ahead to the features toolbar here, and we're going to do a extruded cut. Spacebar, oops, in this case, sorry, escape, spacebar, isometric. We are going to go ahead and do an extruded cut and make this through all. Now I already know I've made a mistake in my extrusion. So I'm going to go to the boss extrude, and I put 58 here where it should have been 48. Fat fingers. All right, so 48, enter, hit your rebuild, and now if I hit my F key, my part is finished. Even teachers make mistakes. Okay, so at this point, let's go ahead and save this part, get our mass properties for it. So I'm going to do a quick file, save as, ACC 7, shift underscore, part 1, shift underscore, last name, and the period. Going to my evaluate tab, I go to mass properties, and I get a 960.74 grams. So go ahead and go to print. Now, when we go to print this, please double check your properties. Okay, we're getting a lot of kids printing 11 by 17 for this. I only need this on 8.5 by 11. So I want you to go to your effects, go print document on letter, scale to fit. Check your paper quality, that it's at letter, and your printing shortcuts as that letter. If you see all three of those at letter, say OK. Make sure you print to L108, TE Lab, and say OK. At this point, go grab your mass properties from the printer, bring it back to your desk, and close out your mass properties pop-up. Now, at this point, we're done with part 1. So now I want to start changing things in part 2. And this is critical. Only anything I'm going to change is the A, B, C, D of this. All the other dimensions will remain unchanged. So only those that, like for instance, 14 will not change, 20 will not change, this 14 will not change, etc., etc. Okay, the only places that are going to change is where I see the letter A, the letter B, the letter C, and letter D. So looking at this, it looks like I'm going to need to change the radius, in this case from 50 to 62, and that this A divided by 2 is going to be 205 divided by 2. And then ultimately, the height over here will be C, which is 26. So what I'm going to do is go to SOLIDWORKS, go to my design tree, and click on the very first branch of my design tree. So the first thing I see is the 170 is going to turn to 205. 205, enter. This 85 is going to be 205 divided by 2. This 18 is going to change. I'm going to peek back real quick because this is my C. It's going to go to 26. Oops, and go back again. And my 48 is going to change according to this from 48 to 60. So I'm going to put here 60. Now nothing's really happened here. A couple things shifted, but not all of it. Oh, and in this case, this is radius. I got to change this radius too. Sorry. Radius of 50 is going to become 62. As you can see, again, not everything has changed. So to make it happen, go up to the stoplight, which is rebuild, and left click. Now, your first panic may be, oh no, I lost one of my slots. That's not, it's okay. It's shifted. Okay, you got to remember, these numbers have changed. The 20 will stay the same. The 14 stays the same. But this 130 changes from 130 to A minus 40, which is 205 minus 40. So going back to this, I'm going to put 205 minus 40, enter. Okay, so now it's in the right spot. But you'll also remember that this has to change because that number there is B minus 20 divided by 2. So that's going to be 60 minus 20 divided by 2. So I'm going to go to this 14 and double click. I want to put parens 60 minus 20, close parens, divided by 2. Enter. And now my slots are recentered up. At this point, I can go ahead and click away. I'm going to do a file, save as, ACC 7, part 2, last name, and go ahead and hit save. Evaluate, mass properties. Now this one went up considerably because we made it much, much thicker. It's going to be 2,456.78 grams. Again, go ahead and go to print. Let's verify the properties are all the same. So I'm going to check that the shortcuts, letter size paper, paper quality, letter size paper, effects, print on document, letter, scale to fit. Hit OK. Make sure you're at L108 and hit OK again. At this point, go ahead and grab your mass property sheet from the printer, bring it back to your desk, and then close out this mass properties pop-up. Now, that takes care of part 2. So last thing I want to do is work on part 3. Again, all we're going to do is change the A, B, C, and D. All the other dimensions are going to remain unchanged. So going back to this, I'm going to change these numbers to 190, 54, 20, and 55. So I'm going to start again in my design tree, starting with this branch. Okay, this 205 is going to turn into a 190. Enter. This is going to be 190 divided by 2. 190 divided by 2. Okay, so looking at those, the height here of 26, that is going to be C. We're going to change it to 20. So double click, excuse me, and 20. Oh, not 203, 20. Now this 60 right here is going to change from 60 to 54. So I'm going to double click on it, 54, enter. Okay, this radius is going to go from 62 to 55. So going back to here, I'll double click and make this 55. All right, so those numbers are changed, but obviously this is not correct. So now I need to go down to cut extrude number 1. This 20 stays the same, the 14 stays the same, 14, 20, but this 165 is A minus 20. Okay, so if we're looking at this, this is just, A minus 40, which is 190 minus 40. Going back to this, I'm going to put 190 minus 40, enter. Okay, so now this is in the right spot, at least left to right. But the problem is, we also have to change this 20, because that 20 is represented as B minus 20 divided by 2. So we're going to do 54 minus 20 divided by 2. So I'm going to click on this, shift, parentheses, 54, I believe is what it was. Yep, 54 minus 20 divided by 2. And check. Now if you look, these slots should be centered back up. I'm going to check the top view. Those are not correct. Hold on here. Oh, I got to do a rebuild. Sorry, rebuild. There we go. Okay, spacebar isometric. This is your final part. So I'm going to do a file save as ACC 7 part 3 and then your last name. Mass properties. I see 1515.30 grams. Again, I'm going to go to print, check my properties, make sure printing shortcuts is on, that is a letter. Paper quality is letter, and effects have this print on letter size scale to fit. Say OK. Make sure you're printing to L108 and hit OK one more time. At this point, go ahead and go grab this from the printer, bring it back to your desk, and go ahead and close out this pop-up window. Now, we're going to put this onto a drawing. So what I'm going to do right now is go ahead and close out this part file, go back into my Schoology account, and under Beginning SOLIDWORKS, we are going to open up the part drawing file, ACC 7 drawing. Again, I like to download it so it goes full screen. So I'm going to open with my Adobe Acrobat, bring this over to the screen, widen this all the way up, and now what we're going to do is create this drawing. So we are going to create a front view, a top view, a right side view, all at 1:1 with an isometric at 1:2. This will be on a B metric border. So I'm going to go to a File, New, GHSB metric, and say OK. Hit my F key. I see my part in the open document, so I'm going to hit the blue arrow. I'm going to do the same setup we've been doing on all our other drawings. I'm going to start with the front view, click on my preview. Hidden lines are visible, box number 2, and the scale, use custom scale, should be 1:1. I'm going to click in this lower left-hand corner, left click. Pull up, left click, pull to your right, left click, and pull it in isometric, left click. Hit escape to stop that. And at this point, I'm just going to take these and kind of slide them over to the left a little bit. And then I'm going to come back up to this view, left click inside the box, add color, change the scale from 1:1 to 1:2. And your last step is to make sure that any excess black lines are removed. Now, if you would like to make this a little bit fancier, make it look a little nicer, you are more than welcome to come back over here and set the black lines on, take the lines off, and hit this little blue ball at the corner to darken it up. Makes it look like it has a lighting and looks like steel. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my PDF file. I'm going to left click and copy all this information. Do a Control-C for copy. Go back into my SOLIDWORKS drawing. Turn on my node tool and drop this below this part. I'm going to do a Control-V to copy. Left click and highlight this. Center it up. Left click and highlight the top line and do an underline. Now, don't forget at this point to go ahead and change your mass properties for part number 3 and put that number in there. Do not leave it with the X's there. I'm only going to leave it for this purpose, for this demonstration. All right, that now view is done. Going back to these views, I've got some things I got to add in here. Okay, so I'm going to look at my PDF file. I'm going to start with this the front side view. So I'm going to come down here and look at this view. Now, the way this center mark was created is I took my center line. I'm going to draw from this point here to this point here, and then I'm going to basically draw from just above that the diamond that we'll see. We're going to draw a line down and a little bit through. This is not a click and add. Now, I will tell you right now, we are missing 2 center lines. One for this hole over here and one for this hole over here. So we'll make sure those get added in. Going back to my SOLIDWORKS, those are already there. So if you look at this view carefully, I don't need to do the center lines. But what I will do is go to my sketch toolbar, drop my line tool down to center line, draw a line from the left corner here to the right corner there, and hit escape. Turn my center line tool on one more time, and hover at the top here, pull a little bit above, left click, pull a little bit below that line, escape. Same stuff we did on all our flat layouts. You should be used to this. Okay, so now let's look at the dimensions we need to add. I need to add a 55, a 70, a 96, a 6, and a 20. So let's go ahead and add those on. Bring my drawing up and my smart dimension. There's my 55. From this corner to this corner is 70. Okay. From this line to this line is 96. Okay. Now I may have to lift this up, and that's all right. Okay, this line right here, I'll pull out to get my 6. And then from this top line to here, I will get my 20. Going back and looking at my views, got all my dimensions, we look good. What I'm going to do here real quick though is take this, turn my smart dimension tool off, and pull this slightly up to give myself some space down below. Okay, looking over at my right side view. There's nothing there. Okay, now I will admit there should be, in this case, some center lines that indicate my slot. So going back to my SolidWorks, those lines are good, but you'll notice there's an extra line at this very bottom down here. I would like you to go ahead and highlight that and hit delete. This view is now completed. Okay, so now I'm going to look at my top view. Go back to my PDF file, slide over, and slide up. Looking at my PDF file, it looks like I need to add some center marks to both of these slots. In addition, there should be a center line going right down the middle of this part. So going into this, I see that center line, that is good. But I need to turn on my annotation toolbar, turn on my center mark tool, click on both of these slots, and now I don't want this in the middle. Now we've done this on the last 3 drawings. I need these at the ends of the arc. So I'm going to go to my left where it says slot center marks, slot ends. Go to this one here, in this case, and check. We go back to this one and delete it. I'm going to add that back on. I do not know why that didn't change at the same time. Okay, and that should be also slot ends. Check. Now at this point, I got to add some dimensions. So looking at this top view, I have a 20, a 150, and a 190. Go back to my drawing. From the center line here to this side over here, I get 20. From the center here to the center here, I get 150. From the far left to the far right, I get 190. Go back to your PDF file. I see an R14, TYP, a 17, 20, and a 54. Go back to my SolidWorks drawing. Click on this and get an R14. From this edge of the arc to the bottom line here, I'll get a 17. From the upper arc to the bottom arc, delete. Upper arc to the bottom arc, pull to my right, I get 20. From the top line to the bottom line, I get 54. I need to add a TYP into this, so I'll go back, highlight this one, and come to my left with a caps lock on, type in TYP. Adjust as you need to. Then I'm going to come here and add in from the left side to the right side of the slot. I will pull up, actually pull out to my right, and then in the white box, type in a TYP. Hit your check mark. At this point, all of your drawing is done. Now I need to adjust my title block. So I'm going to go to my title block here. According to this, this is SWX part drawing ACC number 7. We'll put a part 3 on this. So SWX part drawing space space ACC 7. We're going to put it as part 3. We're going to change that up a little bit. Scale be 1 to 2. Drawn by will be your first initial, last name. And center it up. Today's date will be 11/5/19. Go back and do that again. 11/5/19. Okay, now I lost that because Mr. Combs' fat fingers again turned off his new lock. 11/5/19. Period. 2A. In this case, you'll put your correct period in there. And then check by will be me. R period COMBS. Center it up. We will not change our page numbers for this. We'll wait until we start doing actual assemblies and start creating packets. I see I got a little problem with this one right here, so I'm going to left click, come back, and backspace. Now at this point, the drawing is done. File save it with your parts as is, save, file print. Go ahead and print this as is to the L108 printer. When you're done printing, grab this off the printer, take your 3 mass properties in order, part 1, 2, and 3, staple them to the back of the paper in its upper left-hand corner, fold the paper in half, and place it in the collection box. At this point, ACC number 7 is done. We'll continue on to ACC number 8 in just a moment. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.